Coming in hot.
Welcome in to edition of week 4, or I guess the week 4 edition of the Goose and the Griz podcast. Goose, how are you doing this week, sir?
Overall, bad, but I'm still here.
Yeah, man, I hear you. It's must have been a rough week. I don't know if I had anything to do with that, but I will say that this was a pretty bad week for at least half the league. I would say for sure. I think this week is going to be different because we don't have any game of the week. I mean, this week, if you lost by less than 30, you did not get blown out by week 4 standards, right?
Correct. So it's very rare that we don't have a close game. Like week 1, week 2, we had multiple. Even last week, we had 2 games of the week. But that's not the case this week. So we get to just move along a little bit quicker and get through the information and get some thoughts.
Yeah, man. Let's get into it. Let's take a look at what we were watching last week because you and I both had different things we were watching. First off, the fantasy games. You were taking a look at Manny and Alex, and we already said, there weren't any close games at all, but this one was definitely on the far end of not being a close game. What were your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, I think Alex had a really hot team coming in. Even though his record didn't show, that dominance, but with Tua and Mostert and the Miami rolling, you think he would put up a little bit closer fight toward Manny, who is now the only undefeated team in fantasy football. No, it's just a typical shellacking. Manny has been the top scoring team, 168.5 points within the past 2 games, outscoring his opponents by 85.5 points. So, yeah, that's just kind of where we're at.
Yeah, it's this game kind of mirrored that Dolphins and Bills game, which we'll get to in a little bit. Alex was, flying at least higher than he was this week, and just hit an absolute roadblock with Manny. And yeah, Manny's undefeated, but I still got to put it out there. He's 0.25 points away from me being the only undefeated team. Damn it. So, but I digress. Let's get into the game that I was looking at here. Joel and Carlos. This one was actually one of the closer games. It was only a 25, almost 26-point game. Carlos gets his first loss of the season, and he doesn't even score 90 points, which was surprising because still, only by a little bit now, but he still is the highest scoring team in the league even after that poor showing.
This is just a very, very low-scoring performance from his players. Didn't get a lot of double-digit scores from his top guys, so that kind of what made the difference here. And Joel just happened to have, Ayuk, Andrews, and Alvin Kamara for his first game back. So
what's ironic to me about this is Carlos has been scoring a lot of points, and he's also been facing a lot of points. The one week that he faces next to nothing, only less than 115 points, he can't even break 100. Kind of weird, but that's football for you, right?
Right.
And speaking of that's football for you, unfortunately, Goose, we have to go over this one real quick. The Dynasty belt game, dude. This was the blowout of the week. This was almost a 100-point shellacking. I don't even feel good about this one because I felt so bad for you, dude. I thought it was going to be a better game than this. I moved to 3-1. You dropped to 0-4. 171.25 to 73. That's a 98.25 point win there, folks. Goose, I'm sorry about that. Please don't call the cops on me.
Yeah, this is rough, man. This is rough. I'm not usually getting whooped like this on a weekly basis, and it's been rough. I'm literally the worst scoring team in fantasy right now. I've been averaging 74 points per game in the past 2 games. Just can't get this team off the ground right now. And more that your guys show out. I mean, Anthony Richardson. Most important thing that stands out to me is Christian McCaffrey. This dude's having a historic year. He might be able to match, if not surpass, the year that he had back in 2019 when he had over 2,000 all-purpose yards, ranking him 16th all time. getting him in closer company with Marshall Falk, Gail Sayers, LT in '03, and Barry Sanders in '97 of the likes. I mean, we're talking about the #1 running back in fantasy football right now. This is insane. This man has literally turned back the clock.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I took him first pick overall. Really, the whole reason, of course, because I knew there was risk. I knew that he had burned me when he had his injuries in the past, but the goal is to win a championship, right? You don't win championships by taking the safe route. So I took a chance. It's working out so far. I hope he stays healthy. But yeah, man, I mean, it's been very weird to see how you're scoring. Like you said, you're the lowest scoring team in the league. The only team that has scored less than 400 points so far. And the next closest one to you has scored over 48 points more, and that's Lewis, which is very, very surprising. This time last year, you would have expected that to have been flipped. But still, your season is not over. I have, and you have seen as well, teams that have gone even 0-5 and made a turnaround, made the right moves. You're definitely not one to shy away from trade, so good luck to you, brother. I hope you improve on that pretty quick.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I've made a couple moves. I'm expecting different results, but it is what it is. When you're in a hole, and you've been in this hole, and Lewis, and so it's not, we're all getting a turn basically, but it's just you can't get too down on the season. You can't, get too stressed out. I've made, I would say, probably one bad trade and a couple good ones, right, to be determined. But just hoping for different results. If not, it is what it is. You just, you play the best team you can, and you just blame it on the players.
Yeah, exactly. Nowhere to go but up either, right?
Exactly.
Well, moving on to the games that we were watching, again, ones that weren't very close. You were watching that Bills and Dolphins game. I think we both wanted it to be, less than a 4-touchdown game, but we didn't get that. The Dolphins got spanked. What did you see in this game that kind of turned the tide in the Bills' favor?
I think it was just Josh Allen just being relentless, just not being able to stop him. I think he ended up with 5 touchdowns in the game. And the Dolphins just struggled, to consistently get third down conversions and have that offensive running game in full flow. I think the biggest difference here was just having an opposition, right? A team on the other side that can put up as much points, if not more than you, and having a formidable defense that was able to put the Dolphins away in key moments to kind of keep that score down. And that's pretty much what made the difference. If you can get stops, right? If you can score just slightly more than the Dolphins and get a couple of stops, you have a chance of beating this team, because the Dolphins don't have a top defense either, even though they do have old man grandpa Big Fangio out there on Achane. I don't give a damn. Like, the defense is still not good.
Yeah, he's like the modern day Monty Kiffin, right? I mean, it's just
like, what's all that?
Yeah. But I mean, that was the difference to me, because it's not like the Finns scored 0. They scored 20, which that'll win you, half the time in this league sometimes when you play some decent defense. But it was the defense of the Bills, and I think what surprised me about this game is that Tyreek Hill just really didn't pop off. Like, he didn't have a horrible game, but he didn't take over like you see. And what was weird about it is that the Bills did the same thing that a lot of the other teams tried to do, which is play that cover 2, try to limit the big plays, but they just did it better. The Chargers tried to play that cover 2. They got a good safety core with Derwin James, but they couldn't contain him. And the Bills, they limited them, and they scored, 50 fewer points this week, even though they had Jalen Waddle. And it was just surprising. But, again, that's football, and the Bills showed they're a good team. Of course, because I called them out and said that I'm not sure if they're going to be that team this year, of course, they go and try to prove me wrong. It's good to know they're listening to our podcast, at least.
They're definitely wired in.
Yeah, and then when I'm looking at the game that I was looking at last week, that was kind of a disappointment too, mostly because Deshaun Watson didn't play. But Ravens 28, Browns 3. This one you just got to kind of chalk up to DTR being last second thrown in because Deshaun Watson couldn't play. Not that Deshaun Watson is a game breaker, but when you throw a rookie quarterback in, I don't care how good he looked in the preseason, he couldn't keep the offense on the field. The Browns defense is legit, but when you're constantly going to be out there all the time, you're going to break. And they broke enough to where it was, not even close, 28-3, but we'll have to see how that division goes because I think the Browns and the Ravens is going to be a dogfight for the North.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting that a lot of these players that had success in preseason, they come out in the regular season and they just get mauled, right? They don't look like even a shell of what they look like in preseason. It just goes to show you how vanilla the defenses are in preseason and how much the defensive coordinators hold back in those games. So that's why it kind of gives these players, an unfair evaluation of what they're going to look like in the regular season.
And it carries over to fantasy too, because it's like we watch the preseason. I mean, even you looking at the preseason, how good the Steelers look, and look at how they look right now. It makes you want to buy into a team, and then the games start, and you're like, wait, what the hell's going on? The Bengals, I mean, how in the world? Like, it's one thing to have, a preseason look good, and then you're not as good. It's one thing to have a surprise, like when the Rams surprised in '99 with the greatest show on turf. But there's so many teams that are like, oh, yeah, preseason champions, and the real games start, and they just suck. And it's like, wait, what were y'all doing this whole time? But I digress. But looking at the players that we were both looking at here, you were looking at Achane. Now, I got to say this because I was not aware of this, and I still, I know that everybody has a right to be called whatever they want to nowadays, yada, yada. But I disagree that his name should be pronounced Achane. Did you hear about this?
Yeah. So apparently everybody's been saying his name wrong since college.
Yeah, it's he had all this time to correct it, but now he says it's pronounced Achane. Well, then why is there an E at the end? This defies the English language that I was taught growing up, and it totally ruins one of my other team names that I on another league I named him Django Achane. And now I got to change it to something else. I don't even know. But anyway, even in a loss, he had a pretty good game. 8 carries, 101 yards, 2 tutties, 3 catches on 5 targets for 19 yards. Did you still feel pretty good after watching him about his prospects going forward at least?
I mean, yeah, this is a guy who they held back, I think, week 1. And they really didn't have a lot. They didn't feature quite a bit in preseason at all. They kind of kept them under wraps. And here they are, they're unleashing these past 2 games. This guy's one of the top scoring running backs in fantasy football right now. He had an amazing game, and I mean, this is exciting stuff, man. I don't know if he loved himself or he did this on purpose, but either way, he's got a top running back there now.
I'm telling you right now, he absolutely stolen from me in that draft because if there's 2 rookies that I did have a lot of shares in almost every league, it was Puka Nacua and Achane. And I didn't get him in this draft. I got him in so many other leagues, but if there's one league that would want this guy in, it would be this one. And he's got him, and you're not going to get him away from Saheed right now, which, hey, I don't blame him. But at least his team lost, and it was pretty easy to see that Achane was a win. But if there's one thing that annoys the living daylights out of me, it's not being able to tell if it's a win or a loss, right? And I was looking at Trevor Lawrence. That was who I was looking at last week. And I want an answer. Give me an answer. Are you good or do you suck? And I don't feel like he answered that question. I don't feel like he has answered that question after almost, 2+ years. 23 for 30, 207 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 8 carries for 42 yards. QBR 77.9. That's above average, but average. 105.8 rating. I don't get, and I don't necessarily think it's Doug Peterson either. He's a decent offensive coach, and he got Carson Wentz to look like an MVP. Let that sink in. Carson Wentz was an MVP candidate under Doug Peterson until he got injured. He knows how to coach quarterbacks. He's got the weapons. But good Lord, he just looks exceptionally average. This is not what you look for in a number 1 pick. And it's just odd because it's like, no, he's not bad enough to where you want to get rid of him. But he just doesn't look like the type of guy that you took number 1 overall. Yeah.
So if you're talking about progress, you can say it's definitely a little disappointing where we're at now. What is it, year 3?
Year 2. You got to throw away the Urban Meyer year.
Correct. So that was technically a setback. I don't think he came in with all the tools like they said ready for the NFL. You know how they hyped a lot of these guys up just to get their draft stock,
right?
So I think he was still a little bit raw. had a hell of an arm. Did have some nice pieces, but I think there's a lot of things to work on. And you're right. There's a lot that got missed in that first year with Urban and the Urban shenanigans. And we kind of saw him progressing towards becoming that guy at the end of, you could say, year one with Doug Peterson. But I think they're still learning how to play with each other. They're still trying to figure out how to use Calvin Ridley. I think what you saw a lot this week when they played the Falcons was a lot of the offense that they play like the first half Jaguars. So it's very short pass, dink and dunk, try to establish the run with the running backs. So very basic offense, not a lot of explosiveness. But I think eventually they're going to try to transition to a more deep throwing down the ball, down the field type of team. Not only that, Trevor Lawrence's safety blanket or blankie is Zay Jones. So he's been missing for the past 2 games with a knee problem. I think once you see Zay Jones out there, you can get a better evaluation of what we have in Trevor Lawrence. And then we can say whether he's made any progress or just kind of stayed the same and become this average quarterback, kind of like Kirk Cousins has been for the past couple of years.
Yeah, and they're going to have to figure it out quick because it's not like that division's getting any easier. Anthony Richardson looked pretty good. The Colts look well coached. Good team around them. The Texans, Stroud has taken off considerably. And then even the Titans, they're kind of on the downswing a little bit, but they had a good week this past week. And you never know how Will Levis, the banana in pajamas, you never know if he's going to be good or not, but it's going to be a wait-and-see approach. I just thought they'd really take kind of a stranglehold on this division. But speaking of divisions, let's take a look at where our current standings are after 4 weeks. So about a third of the way through, just over. Super Bowl champions division. Manny at 4-0. He has scored 572 points and against 401. He has faced the least amount of points out of everybody. So, he has that voodoo working for him.
He does.
Saheed is at 2-2, 483.5 to 504.5. He's getting outscored, but he has an even record. Sam is at 1-3. He's getting outscored by a pretty good clip, but he still has that one win, and he's only 3 games back on Manny. How are you feeling about that champs division right now, man?
Wow. Manny's running away with it right now by a long shot. I don't think we expected this. Usually in the champions division, but there's a lot of games to be played. I know Manny and Saheed played each other this week, so there's a couple more division games and also towards the end of the season that will kind of balance this out. But talk about a hot head start. This is exactly what you want if you're in one of these divisions.
Yeah, and looking at Manny in that division, he has the look of a team that might only lose once or twice this year, maybe 3 times, which when you have a team like that in your division, it's hard to catch up. So, yeah, they're going to have to start winning those division games if they're going to have a chance. Next up division, yours and mine and Alex's division. I'm leading it right now, 3-1. I do not feel comfortable. That's only a 1-game lead. Alex is 2-2. Of course, you're bringing up the rear at 0-4. I've scored 573 points. That is second in the league right now, only to Carlos. I faced 446, which is average. Alex is getting barely outscored 471 to 484, and you are getting outscored by 200 points, 386 to 587. I think I found your problem right there.
Oh my goodness.
And that's rough, man. You can't, you can't control what others score against you, but I guess you gotta worry about what you're scoring first, right?
I'm getting creamed, dude. Yeah, that's literally the worst combination you can have. Talk about recipe for failure is having the most points scored against you and score low points. So
yeah, and just to point out how crazy that is, 587.5 points. If that was the points being scored, that would be second to Carlos by only half a point for the most points in the league. Wow. So you are regular. It's like you're scoring the least amount of points and going against the highest scorer every week. That's not a fun combo, dude.
Yeah.
XFL, Carlos and Hector in a 2-way tie right now. 3-1 versus 3-1. Carlos is scoring 588 to 522, facing a lot of points, but scoring a lot. Hector, he broke the 500-point mark almost exactly. 500.75 to 431.75. Kyle is only one game behind. This is sneaky. This is being a sneakily the most competitive division. All of them are scoring more than they're facing, and they're all within one game of each other.
Yeah, they're doing a good job. This is the result of them playing each other. So you're right. This is a very competitive division. It's very tight. The teams are built similarly. I think Carlos on paper has probably the better team out of the three, but any one of these teams can beat you because they're pretty stacked.
Yeah, they got a big division game this week, that's for sure. There will be separation after this week. And last but not least, well, I guess last but least, the Pop Warner division. We got Joel leading it with a 500 record, 2-2. And all the teams in this division are getting outscored. 509.5 to 569.75 for Joel. Jeff and Lewis bringing up the rear tied at 1-3, 498 points to 515 for Jeff, and Lewis at 437 to 499. Look, they can make noise. This is still anybody's division, and depending on who makes the moves, depending on how they're scoring, I mean, they're not scoring horribly. Lewis definitely needs to step it up, but at least Joel and Jeff are right around the 500-point mark after 4 weeks, so they have some promise there, and I wouldn't take them lightly, especially whoever makes that division and gets into the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right. These guys, they're playing pretty damn good. Talking about Lewis, I think he had a name change this week to, what is it, Sloppy Gobble Belichick's Dome?
Yeah, I think it's that he sloppy gobbles Belichick's dome, which just in case, if you're not aware, I want to explain it for the people that may not have much experience, aka Carlos. I know you're young. I know you haven't had much experience in the bedroom. What that basically means is he likes to get on his knees and service Bill Belichick's penis. Okay. What makes it worse is Bill Belichick's 70,000 years old. So, he's probably got a few extra wrinkles in that shaft. And that's just, whew. Gotta say, I didn't know you were like that, Lewis, but don't come in last and you don't have to be. And, Gus, you better win a few more games or you might be servicing Doug Peters or something.
I'm heading that way. I'm trying to get out of there. I'm working on it.
I'm already thinking of names. You better get off this kick, bro.
I'm working on it. Trust me.